university type of fandom. Like, oh, this player is from like UCLA, and then they get to go up against like a rival that is known in another sport or something like that, and then they go head to head in some kind of box fight, and therefore you're able to kind of build that story from the FNCS because hey, these players have fought against each other before, and you get to like build up that entire audience.
Yeah, the storylines. You're right. We kind of follow them so closely across competitive in general here. You kind of see we talked about kind of like FNCS and the like, but when you see in the collegiate space, they kind of have these separate kind of like narratives kicking off and these rivalries, as you mentioned there, Lash. I mean, SBG. I guess it's really good for kind of fans as well, who kind of or players you might want to get into, as mentioned before, like the Community Cup, like kind of newer players as well. It's great to kind of start and trying to find these kind of other stories that are kind of kicking off in a different scene that you can follow too. Kind of gives you kind of a broader kind of like overarching story of everything that happened in the Fortnite space. I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, like we mentioned earlier, there's tons going on. The collegiate space is an awesome developing one. And then we have like the main core competitive. But the cool thing is there's that crossover. So it's not like one or the other is the only thing you can get involved in. One of the cool things that I've been enjoying is the solo victory cash cups. I qualified to a couple of round twos, if I may say so myself.
Oh, look at this guy. Look at this
guy.
Hey.
I did all right. Didn't win a game in round two, but you know what? Those are a fun way to get involved and just kind of get a feel for it because they're pretty quick and it's like a very easy to understand format. Get points in round one, win a game in round two, and that's like easiest for somebody to get through if you're just starting out in Fortnite. All you got to do is win, and I say that although all you got to do is not easy to do. So I don't know. I'm gonna be quiet now.
Classic SBG.
I respect it. I respect it. You know, just win. That's the
just
quote
win.
from SVG.
I mean, I think that could be said for basically every game ever, but just win is definitely up there for sure. Yeah, definitely make sure to keep tabs on that because the collegiate space is really, really exciting, and these obviously loads about it, and it's great to see it's doing so brilliantly integrating gaming with education as well, which is amazing. We talked about kind of FNCS. I got to talk about Surge Week. This just happened, and lots to kind of jump off as well from what Surge Week's one of those things we find synonymous as well with just crazy Fortnite because you have every victory royale gets you qualification for finals. I mean, it's there's so much like that on the line there. You win a game, you go through. We just talked about winning is everything. It really is in that space. Also consistency too. I mean, you guys watched Surge Week. You kind of saw the kind of like the last chance for players to get into grand finals. What did you make of it, SBG? What were kind of some of the highlights that stuck out for you?
So I think the really interesting thing about Surge Week is the top 40 players are already in grand finals, and they're kind of the ones that condition how lobbies play out. So this is like a brand new way to look at the game because, all these other players are now trying to get their feet in these lobbies where you may have been landing a different spot, but then you realize, oh, this team's no longer there. Or after someone wins a match because they qualify, then okay, boom, I can land at that spot, but other teams have the same idea. So it's like this really dynamic type of Fortnite, which is so cool to see, and it's on a constant basis. Some of the big names had to qualify through Surge Week, and even some of the big names that had to qualify didn't qualify. So it's a very difficult task regardless of who you are, and I don't know, it leads to some fun games to watch.
It's the most fun I've probably had ever watching Fortnite. Just watching like the reboot round now, like Surge Week kind of environment where either you win a game or you go through consistency, and that's where the hype is. And even like we saw in the final game of NA, where we saw Diego Plays, who was already in consistency qualification range, up against a team of Scented and Favs, who had just barely made their way into the Surge Week, and just going toe-to-toe, like, all right, whoever wins this goes on into the grand finals, and then it just, boom, shatters glass below.
I know. And you see, I mean, that's one of the amazing things. I think we saw Brazilian triple champion GSX, who managed to go through on consistency and points as well. But then you see on EU, we had Hen and Paco, who Hen, I think 13 different FNCS finals appearances, doesn't qualify. And it's just a matter of points. But I guess it's kind of everyone has to go for broke in that kind of scenario, right? SBG, you know, when it comes to Surge Week, you kind of sometimes do have to kind of switch up plays because you know how important it is to get to that number one spot in one of the 5 games available. And it's sad to see some fall at the wayside, but that just goes to prove a point here as well about how competitive each region is now, particularly with NA now kind of combining NAE and West. You kind of have such a melting pot of so many good duos. It kind of just goes to show how how tricky it is to qualify and how the best of the best really are the greatest in that particular region.
Yeah, and ideally you don't want to have to play through Surge Week because we've seen the volatility that it leads to, and I think everyone going into Surge Week has to have that same mentality of just playing for consistency, because you have to get to end games in order to even qualify. So like you can't go in being like, I'm just going to win a game. I feel like that's a bad strategy. You have to think, okay, I'm going to consistently make it to end game, and if I get an opportunity, I'm going to try and win. And we've seen those plays. There's a lot of teams like in the past, a player like Macwood is someone like historically has been great at winning games, and he's done so through a Surge Week style format. Then we have other teams like a Floki Clement over in Europe, the Frenchies, that have been able to consistently prove, okay, I don't care what challenge is ahead of me, I am prepared for this task, being able to win a game and move themselves over. But, on the other hand, there are teams like Scented and Favs that some of the winningest, most regulars in an FNCS Grands in NA now are just going to fall just short. And you talked about it last, just that head-to-head with Diego plays, that one last shot could have gone either way. And that's the hype moments that Surge Week brings us.
And especially like you mentioned, like these are two, for those of you that don't know who Favs or Scented, or maybe you just know a little bit, but don't know like the full scope of why a moment like that was so important. Scented has an average placement of 15.6 in all of the, I believe, 15 grand finals he's ever made. And then Favs has 3 FNCS championships, which is just insane to see a team of that caliber not qualify. And I'd be interested to see whether or not, like, we see a team like a Queasy Vino, for example, that's amazing at winning games, just like maybe have a down first 3 weeks, and then they have to go through this Surge Week. I'd imagine they just go through first game, though, and like 12 elims, and they just take on the VR, and they're like, all right, we can just sit back and relax now.
Yeah. I mean, there were some teams on EU, I think it was Vico and Kylie, a duo as well, who I think had 5, between them had 5 different Surge Week qualifications through, but sadly kind of fell at the last hurdle here at this particular Surge Week, which is sad to see again, but again, proving that even with that kind of, I guess when it comes down to kind of like the likes of Surge Week, it is a case of, if it's all right on the night and it goes in your favor, you go through the next round. I think a lot of the times as well, you see that different POIs sometimes might be contested or might be otherwise, but contested, suddenly one of the teams, in your particular kind of POI that you drop at is qualifies to the next round. It does open that whole kind of part of the map up as well. So things are ever changing. I think players having to adapt on the fly as well. SBG is, you have to give them credit as well, because so much can be thrown at you at Surge Week and you have to roll with the punches.
And regardless of how the games play out, like you have to come ready with a strategy. You may not know exactly how the drop map's going to turn out, because some players may be switching up after game 1, game 2, every single game. So coming in with a ready game plan to be able to take over in these is huge, and understanding how you and your teammate are going to play is so key. And a lot of teams think high ground is the only way that I can win games, but honestly, it wasn't the only way the teams won games. And more often than not, it seems like the teams that took height early wound up being the teams that didn't win. So, it does get you some consistency there. But if you're trying to win games, finding these low to mid ground layers is going to be the key to that success, at least in my opinion and in the current meta.
And one of the duos here I want to spotlight from EU is got to be Mappy and iDrop, because this is a duo that have been absolute veterans in the space. Like, for iDrop, he's been playing since literal day one competitive, and Mappy is a little bit of a sort of newer face, similar to like a Malibuca, where he recently started popping up like as a huge name, and they made it all the way down to the final game on EU, but they were playing like super consistent to the point where you wouldn't imagine, hey, this team's going to come down to the final game of Surge Week and they closed it out on the wire. But the fact that they pulled out so many incredible plays throughout the day as well to lead up to that point was honestly the definition of why the Surge Week format is just amazing.
And then if we just shift over to NA real quick, we had the last FNCS champion of NA West. Not like last season. This is the last NA West FNCS winner now that the regions have combined. Thork and Bolts had to qualify through Surge Week. And man, Bolts put the team on his back though, and just absolutely went on a tear. I think he had 6 elims as a solo in one game during the end game, got a great placement. So, you know, while it should be done as a duo, and that's how I would advise someone to play, you have to be able to, in the moment, take over and, you know, just push yourself and your team well beyond where you should, because Bolts had no business getting as many points as he did in that game.
He was going crazy. Crazy.
Popping off, Lash. Popping off, my friend. Which was, and that's the great thing about Surge. We saw so many teams qualify. Some fell there, but others made up our teams going through to each region. 50 duos in each is going to be electric to see. And we should talk about grand finals because they are imminent. I mean, FNCS grand finals, chapter 4, season 2. We have got ourselves a mighty, meaty 2 days of action. I mean, 12 games, 6 per day. It's going to be, I mean, as it is every single season, it gets so exciting because 12 games as well. I mean, can we talk about consistency with points, but consistency just in general. I mean, there's so much to think about and digest when it comes down to grand finals. You know, the kind of like how they ride out Storm Surge, getting into the end game, kind of each of the Storms POIs being contested versus uncontested. So many factors, and across 12 games, SBG, it really kind of does kind of separate the teams that kind of rise to the top of the leaderboard and away from those at the bottom as well. So many factors to consider.
Yeah, and whether or not we're going to talk about consistency, there's one thing that's for sure. Queasy and Vino are going to win a game. At some point, probably 2 during a 12-game format. They're like almost guaranteed. It is incredible at what rate these teams can win a game, and I don't know that there's anyone even close to them. But their problem is they go for this winning game play style, which then kind of leads them to have inconsistencies in their game. Although in Europe, I kind of see them, Mustache and Tayson, and then I'm going to get this right, Cammy and Seti. Almost did it, but I didn't. Those 3 are kind of the standouts in Europe, at least for me, this FNCS.
And for Cammy and Seti, they recently just won the week 3 finals as well. So they're coming in pretty hot. Now it's just a matter of like, all right, did this week between week 3 and then the Surge week really play that much of a hindrance as far as like consistency? Because we bring up a point time and time again of how much confidence and how much getting on a roll in Fortnite really matters. And we saw it from Queasy and Vino before the FNCS Invitational, that they were winning Cash Cup on top of Cash Cup, the Elite Weekly Cup Finals, and they were just on a roll. And it showed, like you mentioned, Victor Royale's there. I believe they got 3 during the Invitational last year. So maybe they start to clean up what had happened in last major and major number 1 because they had gotten 8th place. Hopefully we see a team like Queasy Vino, qualify for that global championship as well.
And one of the cool things about watching Queasy and Veno this season and hearing them on an interview during the broadcast was talking about how they've shifted who takes over during the end game. It used to be Queasy was the hard IGL pretty much the entire time. So he would lead the duo from step 1 all the way until the end of the game. But now Veno has kind of taken over during those end game periods. And I think we've seen the success from them being able to remain consistent. I don't know exactly what it is, but 1, it doesn't hurt to have 2 IGLs on your team that understand what's going on. And then 2, having the ability to have arguably the best fragger, maybe the best player in the world, lead you during endgame and Veno, and see him just continue to excel, because pretty much since, about a year ago, he's only gotten better, and that is really scary for everybody else in that lobby.
Absolutely. When we speak about those duos, right? You speak best IGL, best fragger, EU, but then you swap on over to NA, and the reigning NA East FNCS Major 1 champions of Acorn and Cold, I've seen it all over the time. Like, all right, this is probably the best IGL in the region and best fragger on the region, and they're just going all in all the time. And they have truly shown it so far this season, time and time again. Like, I've been all over Acorn's Twitter. He recently has moved from 60 ping of what it was a little bit closer on NA East to now 0 ping alongside Cold, as well as their performances that have already racked up countless first places. And now they're both on 0 ping, winning.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, they are one of the teams. Absolutely in contention, as you mentioned, going into this with on a real hot streak. The experience alone, but let me raise you for a second here. Booga and Threats. Okay, now Booga obviously we know synonymous with World Cup winner and multiple FNCSs as well. Could Booga and Threats here? Could Booga make it a fourth for him? I mean, are they a team that could go the distance as well here and manage to claim the Axe of Champions SBG? Would it be wild to think it's possible?
I think it's possible. At the current moment, I think it's unlikely. Seeing how consistently Acorn and Cold have been able to control an endgame lobby, I'm not just saying play in one, but they're controlling the outcome of others around them, and it's on a consistent, regular basis. They're dropping like 8+ elims, playing low ground, getting third or better in games. And I see Booga and Threats as a team that should be like right below them if we're charting them out. I think it's possible. I just don't know that I've seen the ability for Booga and Threats to play together as well as I would like to say. Not saying they're bad. I'm just saying Acorn and Cold are playing that well right now. And you sometimes run into people that are just hot, on fire, running through lobbies. And, sometimes you can't really do anything about that. So I would put them as like a top 5 duo in the FNCS Grand Finals. But from what I've seen, without being able to consistently get to end games together and play them together, I don't know Booga and Threats are going to be able to jump up top.
I do want to raise you one, though, on another team that's just to the right of them currently on the drop map of NPen and Polarize. And folks, if you haven't really heard much of this duo, it's because, well, NPen has been well known as a player that has done very well back in the past, but has also had his downfalls of like a bottom 5 in an FNCS Grand Final. But since Major won last season, from having a second place on day 2 of the Grand Finals alongside Byla, now alongside Polarized, and the way that NPen explained like their duo kind of chemistry is that he doesn't have a leash on him at all. Like, Polarized will do what Polarized does, and that is just be one of the best fighters in this lobby. It's just a matter of the spotlight that's been given on Polarized has been a little bit of a shadow cast, if you will, because, well, he's a massive content creator in his own right. So when they combine together, you have 2 great content creators as well as competitors over towards Genjutsu Crossing in that same area, and they're hot. They've had second place in week 2, I believe, in those weekly finals. So that's a duo to look out for.
Okay. I mean, there are so many duos to look out for, and you absolutely should. We've got the likes of Savage and Vidil. We haven't talked about Iomzo Rise, Aegis Canada, lots of different duos to keep tabs on. Obviously, it's all happening. Grand Finals, $2 million prize pool, and qualification for the Global Championships later this year as well. So it's all happening. Do make sure to tune in and check it out here. Now, one thing that is obviously fun about the drop spot, other than just hanging out, chit-chatting about all things Fortnite, is we like to sometimes put our wonderful guests here to the test as well, guys. And I know you're loving this. This is an opportunity here right now to have some fun, and you guys listening at home as well can absolutely play along. But how about we do ourselves a little drop spot quiz? You vibing that, SPG and Lash?
I'm vibing with that.
Maybe you should be
if
like,
I win,
definitely.
Yes. If I don't win, then no.
That's the loser's mentality, that easy trophy.
Lash, you're onto something there. Hey, he's quivering in a bush somewhere right now. SPG is. Lash, you got this right now. Okay, so what we'll do is this. Okay, we have a short quiz here. I'll ask you each an individual question. Then I'll ask you each a multiple choice individual question. And we'll finish off with 2 questions that are basically the closest to the answer wins up. Okay, sound good? Okay, you ready for this? Yeah? Yeah. Okay, here we go. I'm going to start with you, SBG. Okay, this is your question. You look incredibly serious right now. Okay, this is your question first and foremost. So SBG, here we go. Question 1. Statistically, SBG, what is the most used shotgun in competitive? What is the most used shotgun in competitive?
I'm gonna think it's a pump shotgun, but I'm gonna, I'm
Okay,
just
okay,
giving
okay.
a
Do you know,
little
do you know,
hint.
okay,
I'm
do you
just
know, do you
giving
know
a
what
little
I'll do? Do you know what I'll
hint.
do here? Do you know what I'll do here? I'll give you this question, Lash.
Mm.
You can have this question, okay? You have this question because I like your optimism here, okay? This is it. You're eager. You're an eager beaver. I like it. Look at that. I can see the smile. Okay, okay. So, question for you here, Lash. This is your first question. We'll get SBG in to do question number 2. Question is this: statistically, what is the most used shotgun in competitive?
Are we talking this season?
The question is the question. I'm not going to start going again.
Okay,
This is,
okay.
but yeah, let's statistically say it's yeah. Let's look at overall recently, statistically the most used in competitive. What are you saying?
All right, so it's either between the Thunder Pump Shotgun or the Havoc Pump Shotgun because not too many people are using the Maven. Maybe it's like an IGL utilizing the Maven, but mm, I'm I'm gonna go with the Havoc Pump.
The Havoc Pump Shotgun. Is this your final answer, Lash?
Yes.
You would be correct, my friends. 1 point for you, baby. Let's go. Did you? I want to know as well. I wonder if everyone at home listening as well got that correct. Whether everyone could actually got the same thing. The Havoc Pump. Did you get it? Were you on the same page as Lash? Maybe so. Okay. I think tricky question sometimes though as well. Kind of working out whether or not is that one. There are different answers, but Havoc Pump Shotgun is absolutely the correct answer there. I love this. This is great. So 1 point goes through to Lash here. Lash, I'm loving the fact as well that you're. I think for me as well, you seemed very eager about that. You seemed very eager to get your answer in, and I respect it. I respect it enormously. Okay, we'll have SPG question in just a moment's time. But I mean, Lash, thinking about kind of ahead to this weekend, and we're going to see a lot more of in grand finals too. When we see grand finals happen, do you think this is going to be one of those utilized weapons as well, infantry wise? Do you think we're going to see a lot of the Havoc Pump?
I would definitely say so, especially that mythic Havoc Pump where you get it from either Brutal Bastion or Shattered Slabs or Mega City, which we had mentioned it from NPen and Polarized. I believe that yes, we're gonna see it come in massively. Like maybe we see kind of like a Surge Week moment from Diego Plays, except now in grand finals, best of the best collaborating together as always.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point actually, because when you think about, I think in general when it comes to finals, I mean, one thing we're gonna see anymore coming up to competitive as well. The ODM gear isn't part of competitive of grand finals, which is I think is a big shift. I mean, how does that affect things as well? Obviously, we'll see a lot more kind of like kinetic blades left, right, and center here. But do you think it switches things up enormously here, Lash? Not seeing ODM gear in the inventory pool come finals?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, now we have more kinetic blades on the island, though. So that's like the little teeter totter, if you will, between these sort of metas. So now, over basically 3/4 of the island, you don't have the ODM gear anymore for your rotations. And we also saw a lot of this season, or a little bit of the front running of this season, was actually the first 2 cash cups that were played without the ODM gear, because ODM gear was introduced in either 24.2, I believe it was. And we got to look at the competition. We saw teams like Yamzo and Rise on NA who were playing magnificent in Major 1 last season, and they were bringing it to start this season, but have kind of teetered off throughout the weekly qualifiers. But they're in grand finals as well, so I believe their knowledge backtracking of earlier in the season, those are the teams that are going to come prepared with only a couple days left till grand finals.
It's close. It's very close. I mean, I'm curious about you as well, Lash, here, and what I like because I'm curious about your kind of entry point into Fortnite. Do you remember your kind of first experience coming into the game, kind of picking up for the first time, kind of how it made you feel, what the kind of backstory is around you and your history with the game? Like, what is your kind of, I guess, what's your earliest Fortnite memory?
I interestingly enough, I actually started watching before I started playing. So it was actually Summer Skirmish, and it was I remember it vividly. It was the Tilted Towers battle between Aiden and Nick Merckx, and just hearing the calls between I believe it was Courage on the call alongside Lupo, and hearing that like nostalgic kind of feeling in that moment. Obviously it wasn't nostalgic then, but now to kind of think back in those moments, that was like what really got me hooked. And it was initially competitive.
It's interesting. I mean, that's a really lovely thing to say as well. The fact that you watched it, and that's kind of like that kind of incentivized you to pick it up and play the game, because I think that's the great thing, I guess, about Fortnite in general over the years as well. And if you're a newer player and kind of new to the kind of the Fortnite kind of space and game and such as well, it's interesting that a lot of characters over the years, a lot of personalities. We've been so fortunate to have so many in Fortnite in general, kind of like enticing us, kind of like keeping us entertained. And that's what I love about like finals as well, when it comes, kind of to the more kind of like tier one competitive kind of all the competitions. There are so many, but we've talked about the kind of like their backstories and kind of where they tend to drop POI wise and where they tend to go. And duos flip flop all the time, and new duos kind of form. They change up. Some stick together. We talked about Cammy and Seti, been together for as long as I can remember, whereas others kind of change on the fly. I love that about the fact there are so many kind of characters and big kind of players that we've seen them do such big things, and it's so fun to watch. And there've been so many over the course of the last however many years since Fortnite first came out that we're still blessed to see it today as well.
Absolutely. And I love I think back to the Invitational just so many times of hearing the players, especially with the first in-person event back as well, and just hearing the fans, especially the Brazilian players, the highlight of Pegazine and Kitaz. Like, I remember just hearing you, especially Adam, just let me hear you scream, and then just them going absolutely crazy.
You know me, Lash. I'm all about the hype. I am all about the hype. I love to see it here. SBG apparently is quivering in a bush somewhere right now. He's taken his strat to real life. And he's gone there, and he's bold. I think that you answered that first question so confidently there as well, that he couldn't hack it. He's gone to I'm just joking, of course. But it's been absolutely amazing having you guys kind of check out the show this evening. Wherever you are enjoying the drop spot. There are so much happening in the competitive world right now. Whether or not you have been enjoying it as a newcomer to the space here, and a newcomer to Fortnite competitive, or you've been watching all this time, enjoying all this time. Great to have you here. Thanks for being here. As well, Lash, I must ask you, where can we find you online? If anyone wants to check out you and see exactly what you're up to, where can they find you?
Hey, at Caster Lash on every single platform, clean branding across the board, and as hence the name, Caster, hey, you'll catch me on a couple very cool broadcasts here coming in the future, so make sure you tune in there. Got breakdowns, analysts, everything you'd like to see. As well, make sure you follow SBG at Somebody's Gun. He does very similar analyst content. He just dropped one a couple days ago, so hey, make sure you check him out as well.
You know it. And as mentioned earlier on, check out all the kind of things available to you right now. If you didn't manage to get it in the recent Community Cup, available in the store right now. You've got yourself the kind of the Aura outfit as well, which is great. If just in time for FNCS Grand Finals. Thanks so much for checking out our show here. It's been great to have you here on the drop spot. I've been Adam Savage. Big thanks to SBG and Lash, and look forward to seeing you again very soon. Until then, we'll see you on the Battle Bus. Goodbye from us.